The moment that finally broke something in me wasn't even loud. No screaming. No giant fight. It was just my wife standing in her parents' dining room holding a casserole dish while her sister laughed and said, "Wow, homemade again. That's kinda adorable." Everybody smiled like it was harmless. And Lena, my wife, smiled too. That was the part that messed with me. She smiled like she'd heard versions of that sentence her entire life. Like she already knew where she ranked in that family. I remember looking around the table thinking, are we seriously doing this again? Vanessa sat there in this cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than our monthly grocery bill, sipping wine while her husband Nolan talked about some luxury condo deal downtown. Her parents hung onto every word like he was on CNBC or something. Meanwhile Lena was still standing there holding the hot dish because nobody had cleared space for it. Not one person noticed. Or maybe they did and just didn't care. I got up and took it from her. Tiny thing. But I saw the look in her eyes afterward. That quiet little "thank you" look people get when they're used to being overlooked. Honestly, I hated that I recognized it so fast. By then we'd been married almost 6 years, and I'd seen enough family dinners to understand the rhythm of things. Vanessa was the golden child. Always had been. Big house in the suburbs, designer bags, country club friends, endless stories about networking events that sounded suspiciously like drinking expensive wine near people with money. Lena worked for a non-profit healthcare organization managing operations between a few community clinics around Chicago. Which, apparently, was invisible work unless somebody needed help. Her family loved calling her sweet. That was their favorite word. Sweet meant non-threatening. Sweet meant she wasn't important enough to compete with. And Lena, man, she just kept taking it. Not in a weak way, either. That's the weird part. She was probably the strongest person at that table. She just didn't feel the need to announce it every 5 seconds like Nolan did. That guy couldn't order coffee without sounding like he was pitching investors. I remember one Christmas he actually looked around our apartment and said, "You two are still doing the minimalist thing, huh?" Minimalist. Brother, we were broke. But Lena just laughed softly and changed the subject while I sat there trying not to say something that'd turn dinner into a hostage situation. That was her specialty though. Keeping things smooth. Swallowing stuff before it turned ugly. And I guess after enough years, people start assuming you'll keep swallowing forever. Then Nolan's big project started falling apart. That's really where all this changed. He'd been working on this massive mixed-use development out near Aurora. Condos, retail, restaurants, the whole thing. Every family dinner somehow circled back to it. Nolan loved hearing himself explain square footage. Then suddenly, silence. No more bragging posts online. No more expensive steakhouse check-ins. Vanessa stopped making little comments about building generational wealth. Something was wrong. We found out later one of their major lenders pulled out unexpectedly and construction stalled halfway through phase 2. Investors got nervous. Contractors started pushing for payments. It got messy fast. And the craziest part? That was the first time those people started treating Lena like maybe she had a functioning brain. Her mom called one night asking if Lena could help organize paperwork because Nolan's office was completely overwhelmed right now. I was in the kitchen making pasta when I heard Lena say, I can take a look, sure. No apology for years of disrespect. No humility. Just immediate expectation. Like Lena existed on standby waiting to rescue them. After the call, she leaned against the counter for a second looking exhausted already. "You don't have to do this," I told her. She shrugged. "I know. But she still did it." Of course she did. That weekend our dining table disappeared under piles of contracts, invoices, vendor reports, loan summaries, all kinds of stuff Nolan's team should have been handling months earlier. Lena sat there in sweatpants with her hair tied up, reading line after line while half-finished coffee cups collected around her. I figured she'd help organize things and that'd be the end of it. Then around midnight she went completely still. Not dramatic. Just stopped moving. I looked over from the couch. "You okay? Hang on." She kept staring at one spreadsheet, then grabbed another folder beside it. A few minutes later she whispered, mostly to herself, "That doesn't make sense." Turns out several vendor payments had been duplicated under slightly different company names. Small enough individually that nobody noticed right away. But together? A lot of money. Lena kept digging. And honestly, the more she looked, the worse it got. Fake consulting invoices. Missing approval records. Payments routed through vendors that barely existed online. I remember sitting there feeling this slow weird realization creeping in. These people treated her like she was small for years. Meanwhile she was the only person competent enough to catch a financial leak that could destroy a multi-million-dollar project. Life's funny like that sometimes. The next morning Nolan came over. Didn't even really say hello. Just walked in already stressed, tie loosened, phone buzzing every 10 seconds. Lena handed him a folder with notes clipped to the front. He skimmed maybe 3 pages before his face changed completely. Not subtle either. Dude looked physically sick. "Where'd you find this?" he asked. "In your reports." "No, I mean, how did you even catch it?" Lena gave this tiny shrug. "I checked the transfers against the approvals. That was it. Simple. But I swear that was the first moment Nolan ever actually looked at her instead of through her. They ended up uncovering that one of the project managers had been rerouting money through fake subcontractors for months. Hundreds of thousands gone. Maybe more. After that, everything shifted. Suddenly Lena's calls got answered immediately. Suddenly her opinions mattered. Her dad started asking questions about her work at family dinners. Vanessa stopped interrupting her constantly. Even Nolan toned down the whole finance bro act around her. But honestly, the thing that bothered me most was how none of them admitted what they'd done before. Nobody said, "Hey, maybe we treated you unfairly." They just quietly adjusted once they realized she was useful. Lena noticed too. One night we were sitting on our apartment balcony eating takeout noodles while traffic hissed below us in the rain. She was weirdly quiet. Finally she said, "You know what sucks?" "What?" "They only respect me now because I saved something they cared about." I didn't really know what to say to that. Because she was right. A couple weeks later Nolan invited Lena to sit in on an investor meeting downtown. Apparently the financial situation had gotten serious enough that they needed her findings explained directly. I took the afternoon off work and drove her there because she was nervous, even though she'd never admit it out loud. The whole building smelled like expensive cologne and polished marble. One of those places where everybody walks fast like they're being timed. Inside the conference room, Nolan immediately slipped back into performance mode. Confident voice. Big gestures. Corporate buzzwords flying everywhere. And for a while, it worked. Then one investor asked a simple question. "How were these discrepancies discovered?" Nolan smiled tightly and said, "My sister-in-law helped organize the reporting." Helped organize. I actually looked at Lena because I knew that phrase hit her too. For a second she just sat there quietly. Then another investor turned toward her. "Is that accurate?" And man, I'll never forget the silence before she answered. Because Lena wasn't angry. That's what made it powerful. She just looked tired of shrinking herself for people. Finally she said, calm as anything, "No. I conducted the review myself after noticing inconsistencies in the payment structures and vendor approvals." That room changed instantly. You could feel it. One older investor leaned back slowly and looked at Nolan like he'd just realized the wrong person had been running the conversation all year. Then he asked Lena questions directly for almost 20 minutes while Nolan sat there barely speaking. I'm not gonna lie. Part of me enjoyed watching that. Not because Nolan got embarrassed. Because Lena finally stopped making herself smaller to protect everybody else's ego. After the meeting we rode the elevator down together in complete silence. Nolan loosened his tie and stared at the floor numbers a while before saying, kind of quietly, I didn't realize how good you were at this. Lena looked straight ahead. Then she said, yeah. I know. That was it. No speech. No revenge moment. Nothing dramatic. Just the truth landing where it should have landed years earlier. Things got better after that. Not magically. Families don't transform overnight like sitcoms. But different. Quieter. More careful. A few months later we were at her parents' house again for a cookout. Same dining room. Same people. But the air felt different somehow. At one point I walked inside for drinks and noticed that old fishing photo Lena gave her dad years ago hanging on the kitchen wall. The one he barely acknowledged when she first gave it to him. Her dad caught me looking at it. For a second he seemed embarrassed. Then he just nodded toward the photo and said softly, she notices things other people miss. I smiled a little. Yeah, I said. She always did. Outside. Lena was laughing at something near the patio lights, finally looking relaxed around her own family. And honestly, I think the best part wasn't that they needed her help. It was watching her realize she never needed their permission to matter in the first place.